Draco Malfoy, and why in Merlin's name is it always Harry? By Draco, we'll hear about this. Chapter 8. The Worth of Friendship.
Draco! Draco! Wake up!
Harry's voice filtered into his consciousness slowly, as if he was listening to it through layers of water. It was only when he was shaken roughly that he forced his lids to lift. He found Harry's green eyes very close to his face, full of worry as he stared at him. Draco's heartbeat picked up despite the sluggishness he still felt.
Draco?
Harry hissed, his fingers tightening on his shoulders.
What are you doing sleeping in the owlry?
Draco blinked, taking a disoriented look around. He was indeed in the owlry. Hedwig and Aquila were both sitting on the windowsill behind him, watching the scene in front of them silently. The sun was already high up in the sky, causing them to puff up their feathers in a sign of sleepiness. Draco must have fallen asleep up here at some point, and the owls had stuck close to him, trying to share some warmth with him. Not that it had done much good. Draco felt chilled to the bone, and a shiver gave that fact away, causing Harry to lift one hand to his forehead and check his temperature. Draco almost flinched away from the touch.
You're burning up.
Harry groaned in exasperation.
What are you doing, Draco?
I woke up early and couldn't sleep anymore. Draco lied. So I came up here and I must have fallen asleep again.
Well, you need to go see Madame Pomfrey now.
Harry grumbled, helping him get to his feet.
Draco swayed a little as he stood.
Damn it, Harry was right. He definitely had a fever. He felt dizzy and weak, and the arm that Harry slung around his waist to hold him upright did not exactly help the matter like it was supposed to. How did you find me? Draco croaked as they made their way down the icy steps and back to the castle.
I checked the map when you didn't turn up for breakfast.
Harry sighed.
I should have known. You always end up in the owlry somehow. I don't know why it holds such an appeal to you, seeing that it's cold and doesn't even have window panes. Can't you find a warmer place to brood?
I wasn't brooding, Draco muttered, though he knew it was a lie. I just like visiting my owl is all.
Yeah, well, Harry rolled his eyes. I'd appreciate it if you could at least try not to die of hypothermia. I have enough things to worry about as it is.
Madame Pomfrey was even less pleased with Draco's condition than Harry was. She muttered under her breath as she forced a vile-tasting potion down his throat, followed by a dose of pepper-up that made steam come out of his ears. Take it easy for the rest of the day, she advised as she dismissed him, and stay out of the cold. Harry personally made sure that Draco did, first leading him into the kitchens to have Dobby smother him with food and hot beverages, before sneaking back into his thankfully deserted dormitory down in the dungeons with him by means of the invisibility cloak. They sat in the armchairs near the fire, Draco with his blanket thrown over himself, trying not to implode under Harry's focused attention. So, Draco asked finally, his eyes on the dancing flames, how was the Yule Ball? Harry groaned, and Draco hated himself for how much that piqued his interest.
It was a disaster,
Harry told him.
You did the smart thing in staying away, though I really wished you'd been there. I could have used your scathing comments to make the whole thing even remotely fun.
And with that, he dived into a retelling of the way the Patil twins had abandoned them for other dance partners. From the sound of it, due to neglect from Harry and Weasley's side, the fight Hermione and Weasley had had over Hermione agreeing to accompany Victor, which is not exactly surprising to Draco, though the redhead's reaction was a little more extreme than he had anticipated, and the talk between Hagrid and Madame Maxime they had overheard, revealing Hagrid's giant heritage. Again, less of a surprise to Draco.
Basically, I'm glad to stay away from everyone for the rest of the day,
Harry grumbled.
I'm sick and tired of Ron and Hermione biting off each other's heads. I'll just stay down here with you.
Well, you're welcome to my company anytime you want, you know that, Draco remarked, trying to sound cheerful, but he felt fluttery and weak. This was bad, really bad. He wished he had never realized his own feelings if that was how things were going to be from now on.
Oh, and there's something else,
Harry said suddenly, sitting up with a frown.
Diggory approached me last night.
Diggory? Draco repeated in confusion. What did he want?
He told me to take the egg to the prefect bathroom on the 3rd floor and to mull things over in the water, in return for the tip-off about the dragons, apparently. Do you think it's a trap?
Harry was looking at Draco like he hoped it was, so that he had another excuse to mistrust Diggory, and Draco quite understood the sentiment. What he said, though, was, "Nah, I don't think so. He is a Hufflepuff. They're all about loyalty and fairness. I think he must be serious in wanting to help you."
But what could taking a bath do to help me?
Harry asked in frustration. "The obvious explanation is that you need to put the egg in the water," Draco responded, and at the moment he said the words, their meaning hit him completely. "Of course!" he breathed, his eyes traveling to the window of his dormitory, which looked out over the ground of the lake. "It's a water creature of sorts! Mer people, maybe? And to identify them, you will have to listen underwater. Why didn't I not think of that?"
"So you think I should go?"
he asked, still sounding hesitant. "I'm not sure there's really any need to go to that bathroom and risk being caught." Draco frowned, getting to his feet. "I have a better idea. Go get that damned egg and meet me here again as soon as you can." Harry followed his instructions without further ado, and within a couple of minutes, Draco had transformed his cauldron into a large container full of water, big enough to cover the egg and both their heads if they stuck it in. When Harry returned, he handed the egg to Draco and examined the glass container with some suspicion. "All right," Draco nodded, throwing a towel over his shoulder and handing another one to Harry. "No time to waste. Let's open it underwater." Draco sunk the egg under the surface and held it there. Harry assisted in opening it, and immediately dampened voices could be heard from the water. They nodded at each other. Harry sunk his entire head into the water, but Draco, wary of getting wet and cold, merely leaned in sideways enough that one ear was in. He immediately registered melodic voices and an ethereal tune floating through the water, and Draco concentrated hard to catch what it was saying. "And how long you'll have to look to recover what we took, but past and how the prospects black. Too late, it's gone, and won't come back."
"You were right,"
Harry spluttered as he resurfaced, his hair wet and water drops clinging to his skin. Draco had to look away. He lifted his towel and dried the side of his head for something to do.
"It was mer people, and they're going to take something of mine.
"You listen to the whole song," Draco instructed, standing up to get parchment and quill. "I'll take notes." Within a couple of minutes, Draco had penned down the whole song, and the container had been returned to its original state as a cauldron as they sat back by the fire, Harry toweling himself dry as Draco babbled at him. "Come seek us where our voices sound. It's definitely the lake. You'll need to go into the lake to find something they've taken from you. We've taken what you'll sorely miss. Sounds like they'll try to take something you treasure, to make you panic and throw you off course, maybe. Though I'm not sure what exactly they'd take for something like that. An hour long you'll have to look and to recover what we took. Well, that was obvious. You'll have to go down to the lake and get back whatever they take from you in the matter of an hour. Sounds easy enough, really," Draco mused.
"Easy," Harry repeated. "How the hell am I supposed to hold my breath underwater for an entire hour, Draco?"
"There are ways," Draco shrugged. "Spells and the like. The task is still more than a month away. Let's write to Professor Lupin. He'll be sure to know the answer, and he's not a teacher anymore, so asking you won't break any rules."
"Okay."
Harry nodded, being relieved at Draco's solution.
"Okay, yes, you're right. Let's write to Professor Lupin."
Draco summoned another blank parchment and dipped his quill into the ink. Professor Lupin didn't take long to answer them, and Draco's appreciation for the man, if possible, grew even more when he provided them with a number of possibilities to breathe underwater for the duration of an hour. "The obvious choice would be a bubblehead charm," he had written, "but as I strongly assume you are asking for the purpose of Harry using it in the next task, I wouldn't suggest it. The spell is not exactly hard to perform, but it's fragile, and once the bubble that provides you with oxygen bursts, you'd be in danger. So I'd lean towards a second option, which is not a spell, but a plant. Gillyweed, once ingested, will provide the wizard with the means to help him survive underwater for an hour, by making him grow gills and transforming hands and feet into some form of fins. I think that solution might be ideal if Harry needs to perform the next task underwater, because it is easy to use and less risky to uphold, so we can concentrate completely on whatever he needs to be doing. If you need help procuring the gillyweed, I can order it at an apothecary and send it to you." After discussing the matter between the two of them, they agreed that their former teacher was right and asked him to help them get their hands on the gillyweed, which he did without delay. In the matter of a week, Aquila delivered a little package with said plant placed in a box charmed to keep it fresh till the day of the second task, and Hermione was more than a little taken aback when they finally explained the situation to her and Weasley. "You could have come to us once you figured the egg out," Hermione frowned. "I would have helped."
"You were the one saying Harry needs to figure it out by himself," Draco reminded her tersely.
"I only meant to say that you can't do his work for him," Hermione huffed. "I never said I was unwilling to help."
"Well, we managed it without you just fine." Draco shrugged, ignoring the way she studied him unhappily at his short tone. "If you're so keen on helping, why don't you go talk to Victor?" Weasley muttered under his breath.
"Oh, would you drop it?"
Draco rolled his eyes before Hermione had a chance to answer, exasperated with Weasley's behavior. "Victor was a nice bloke, and he had no intentions of stepping on your overgrown and overly sensitive toes by asking Hermione out. You wouldn't have said a word against him if he'd befriended you instead of me and Hermione, so stop embarrassing yourself by being a bitter git!" "Draco," Harry sighed, but Weasley was already getting to his feet, his face an ugly grimace and his skin flushed scarlet in fury. When he turned to head out of the Great Hall in fast strides, Harry stood to follow him. "Do you always have to provoke him?" he muttered tiredly.
"He's the one acting nasty and irrational," Draco protested, immediately bristling at the unfair attack. "Why do I get scolded for calling him out on it?"
"Because we both know you enjoy coming down on him." Harry rolled his eyes. "I know how your mind works, Draco. You can keep the peace if you want to, you just don't."
"Well, he behaves like a complete arse," Draco snapped. "Why should I bother looking the other way when he nags Hermione like a jilted ex-wife?"
"Don't forget it," Harry muttered and followed after Weasley. It hurt Draco more than it should, and he pushed the plate of eggs and toast he had brought over from the Slytherin table away, all appetite gone.
"Are you all right, Draco?" Hermione asked tentatively, still watching him. "You've been irritable and weird ever since the whole you ball thing started. It's worrying me."
"I'm fine," Draco hissed. "Can you please stop analyzing me?"
"All right,"
Hermione backtracked, holding up her hands in surrender.
"I just wanted to help."
"I don't need help."
Draco spat, and he got to his feet as well, suddenly just wanting to be alone. He withdrew to a secluded corner of the library, more for the peace of it than for any other reason. Most students were enjoying the last days of holiday too much to study, so it was almost deserted. Draco had finished all of his homework, and his terrible mood had given way to an excess of study sessions, meaning he was way on top of the curriculum. He ended up rereading a random book on alchemy just for something to do until Victor joined him at his table, looking like he was approaching him against his better judgment. It was not that Victor and he hadn't talked, since the other boy had clumsily insinuated that Draco had feelings for Harry. They still regularly sat together throughout their meals at the Slytherin table, and sometimes he sat with him and Hermione in the library when Harry and Weasley were out and about doing something else. But their conversation had never strayed to anything even remotely close to the Yule Ball, Harry, or feelings in general. But when Draco took in the expression on Victor's face as he sat across from him, looking like all he really wanted to do was run, he knew that the Durmstrang student was building up to addressing the topic once more, and it made Draco feel sick in the stomach.
"Let me guess,"
he said faintly.
"Hermione sent you?"
"No," he protested too quickly, and when Draco just lifted an eyebrow at him, he caved, admitting, "Well, yes. She said she was worried about you."
"Can we please not do this?"
Draco pleaded.
"Before you make me want to throw myself off the astronomy tower."
"I won't force you to talk, if you don't want to," Victor said slowly, a frown on his face. "But I was watching you, and I think you need to." When Draco didn't answer, just looking at him wordlessly, he added awkwardly, "But you don't have to. It is be fine." Draco sighed deeply, slumping back in his chair, allowing himself for once to be as utterly miserable as he felt. "You are a good friend," was all he managed to say. Victor shrugged awkwardly, but it seemed to encourage him because he suggested, "Why don't you come and take a walk with me?"
It's cold,
Draco complained. Not that cold.
Victor waved him off, and when he got to his feet, Draco had no choice but to follow him. The grounds were mostly empty despite the sunny weather, and Draco's breath fogged up as he followed Victor out into the snowy landscape. It would have been beautiful, really. The mountains and the forest, powdered in white and glistening in the sun. But Draco couldn't appreciate it, what with the tumult of emotions raging inside his chest.
I am sorry,
Victor spoke up after a while, breaking the uncomfortable silence between them.
It was wrong of me to say anything. I wanted to help, but I think I should have been quiet.
But you were right, Draco admitted, his voice heavy. I didn't understand it when you said it, but now I do. Only I wished I didn't.
When Victor looked like he was going to apologize again, he added,
It's not your fault. Don't worry about it. I would have realized it eventually, even without your input.
They fell back into their tensed silence, and it took several minutes before Victor started speaking again.
At Darmstrang, it was always Andrei Stoyan and me,
he said heavily.
They were my first friends, and I didn't talk to many others. In 5th year, Stoyan realized he was in love with Andrei. It was a mess.
Did he tell him?
Draco asked in a small voice.
Did Andrei react badly?
No, he was very nice.
Victor shook his head.
But he likes girls, and he knew he could not feel for Stoyan the way Stoyan felt for him. And Stoyan was very upset.
Of course he was,
Draco whispered.
Our group broke apart because Stoyan couldn't be around Andrei all the time.
Victor explained, his voice sad.
I am still friends with both of them, but they don't talk. I think it is a little better now because Stoyan told me he fell in love with someone and they are together, but I don't think they will.
He did not finish the sentence, but Draco understood anyways.
It will never be the same,
he filled in, his chest feeling tight.
So, when I noticed the way you...
Victor explained, his words slow as he searched for the right expression and gave up.
Before the U-Ball, I wanted to help you. You are a lot like Stoyan, no? It's why I liked you. You are emotional, sometimes a little intense, but that's okay, it makes you a good friend. But it also makes you easy to hurt.
Draco stayed silent through his words, his thoughts rather self-depreciating. He knew Victor was right in a way, but it all came down to him being weak and vulnerable, and that was something he hated about himself.
I don't want to say you are like Stoyan and Andrei,
he noted quickly when he saw Draco's face.
I don't know Potter enough to know if he would be interested in you that way or not.
He isn't,
Draco said simply, trying to keep the bitterness out of his voice.
He likes girls. He never looked at me that way.
He took a deep breath and muttered,
That's why I can't ever tell him.
I'm sorry you feel this way,
Victor said so sincerely that Draco felt like crying.
It's a bad situation.
There's nothing I can do, really, Draco shrugged. I can't do what Stoyan did. Harry is my best friend, and I cannot give that up no matter how much I might wish that he'd see me as more than that. I'll just have to pretend it's not there.
Can you do that?
Victor asked.
I have to,
Draco said decisively.
It's the only option I have. You don't know much about Harry or about my background, but things are too tangled for me to take a step back, especially now, in the middle of the tournament. Not to mention I'd go insane with worry. And Harry, he only has us to rely on, you know? And Weasley has been a complete jerk this year, so that leaves Hermione and me. I could never do that to him, you know? Leave him to his own devices like that just because I'm hurting. He hasn't done anything wrong. And even though he doesn't feel the same for me, I know that I am important to him. So as long as he needs me, I will be there.
You are very loyal,
Victor noted with a small smile.
But please don't forget to think about yourself, too.
I'll try,
Draco promised, though he knew he didn't mean it. He'd easily sacrifice his own happiness for Harry's, and he knew that clear as day. Victor nodded, and they continued their walk over the grounds in renewed silence, though they had left the tension behind, somewhere on the way.